The concern over a Trump administration policy opening churches to immigration raids. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. Religious institutions used to be protected, except in emergencies, from immigration raids and arrests. Not anymore. The Trump administration has changed that. Some Central Florida pastors serving immigrant families see the change as a threat to their religious freedom.
The reality is many people who aren't directly impacted by immigration are directly impacted by this, because this is a violation of their sense of safety, their sense of holiness, their sense of the sacredness of what church is.
Others don't see it that way.
Churches are still able to minister to the homeless, to those who are illegal, and to do everything that they've always been able to do. But one thing that they can't do is be a place where the law of our civil society no longer apply.
The effects of President Trump's immigration policy on Central Florida churches, that's ahead on The Wrap. The big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. Governor Ron DeSantis has proposed a $115.6 billion budget for the next fiscal year that calls for increasing pay for state law enforcement officers and firefighters, eliminating a commercial lease tax, and holding a new sales tax holiday on guns and ammunition. The proposal is an initial step as lawmakers prepare to negotiate a final budget during the regular legislative session, which will start March 4th. Under DeSantis' budget, entry-level law enforcement officers would see pay rise by 20%, while veteran law enforcement officers and state firefighters would receive 25% increases. The budget proposals don't seek tuition or fee increases for students at Florida colleges or universities and would maintain current funding levels for the Bright Future Scholarship Program. Speaking at the state capitol Monday, DeSantis said the budget is fiscally responsible.
You could be fiscally responsible, respect taxpayers, and yet still deliver on the main promises that you made and the main public needs of our people.
The governor wants lawmakers to implement a sales tax holiday for guns and ammunition. He's calling the holiday a Second Amendment summer. Democrats say the budget doesn't focus on the needs of average Floridians, and more money is needed for schools and other programs. The 2025-2026 fiscal year will start July 1st. Some Venezuelans living in Central Florida are concerned over a Trump administration order ending protections that shield them from deportation. Cecilia Gonzalez Herrera is a migrant living in Central Florida whose family fled after prosecution from the Venezuelan regime when she was just 18 and is thankful for the safety it's provided from her home country. Speaking with Central Florida Public Media's Engage, she said for the first time since leaving her home country 8 years ago, she fears for her safety.
At the end of the day, we just commit the crime of wanting a better future. I think we are just people that deserve to live without fear, to dream without limits. I think we're just people that contribute fully to this country that we now call home.
The Department of Homeland Security determined that conditions have, quote, improved enough in Venezuela to revoke those protections, which will expire in April. The order affects more than 300,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S. A permanent memorial that honors the 49 lives lost in the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting is moving forward. As Central Florida Public Media's Luis Alfredo Garcia reports, members of the Pulse Memorial Advisory Committee gave their final thoughts this week on the design for the memorial.
The city of Orlando is one step closer to a design that honors the 49 victims. The One Pulse Foundation, which was previously set to help with a permanent museum and memorial, dissolved in late 2023, meaning it fell solely onto the city to set up a memorial. The committee decided to fly flags of each victim's nationality, but other decisions like where to put the names of the victims will fall to designers. The city and Mayor Buddy Dyer seek to finish the project by late summer or early fall 2027.
Central Florida Public Media's Luis Alfredo Garcia reporting. These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. It's MegaCon this weekend, where many sci-fi comic and anime fans will dress up as their favorite characters.
I know some people are intimidated by what they've seen and how impressive some people make their costumes. And I always say, give it a try. You got to start somewhere. Everybody is encouraging in the community.
The art of cosplay. Hear more on our podcast Spotlight. Get it wherever you get this podcast. One of the immigration directives of the new Trump administration opens up churches and other previously protected locations to raids by government agents looking for undocumented immigrants. That has raised concerns for churches serving immigrant families in Central Florida. Some church leaders worry about religious freedom and say the change is making people afraid to come in and worship. Central Florida Public Media's Joe Burns has more on this.
¿Dónde están los colombianos? Todos los colombianos y los aliados de los colombianos. Tiren su mano hacia esta familia.
Colombians and allies of Colombians, stretch your hand for this beautiful family.
Pentecostal pastor Gabriel Salguero leads a truly bilingual English and Spanish service Sunday morning at the Gathering Place in Orlando. He speaks or sings in one language, and his wife Jeanette seamlessly translates to the other. He welcomes a family of asylum seekers from Colombia. Don't be afraid, he tells them, because God is watching over you and you are not alone.
No solo un Dios.
Not only
Tú tienes una iglesia.
you have a church
Tú
here,
tienes una gente
you have a family here now
que ora por ti,
that prays with
que
you.
intercede por ti.
Salguero wants the church to be a welcoming place, regardless of immigration status.
People should feel free to come to worship and to serve God and sing and clap and have their children come to Sunday school without the fear of them being separated. This is a holy place, and holy places need to be respected.
Salguero leads the National Latino Evangelical Coalition. He says several members of the coalition have seen a drop-off in attendance. He's seeing some change too, but won't know the full impact for a few weeks. Other religious leaders, including Catholic bishops and Quaker groups, have also protested the change in policy. But there's still disagreement among Christian groups. Matt Staver is founder of the Christian Conservative Liberty Council in Orlando. On immigration, he says, a complex set of issues has, quote, different people of faith focused on different priorities.
On the one hand, I think there's a universality on wanting to help those who are immigrants. But on the other hand, there is this idea of wanting to have law and order and protect our citizens.
Religious liberty, along with opposition to abortion and to LGBTQ plus rights, is a focus of the Liberty Council. But Staver does not see a problem with opening churches to immigration enforcement.
I don't see this as a religious liberty issue. Churches are still able to minister to the homeless, to those who are illegal, and to do everything that they've always been able to do. But one thing that they can't do is be a place where the law of our civil society no longer apply.
At Christ the King Episcopal Church in Orlando's Azalea Park, Father Jose Rodriguez believes it does come down to religious freedom.
The reality is many people who aren't directly impacted by immigration are directly impacted by this, because this is a violation of their sense of safety, their sense of holiness, their sense of the sacredness of what church is.
He says people are asking, will they kick in the doors? Will they stop the worship service?
It's not evoking images of law and order. It's evoking images of brute force and disruption and chaos. It's already having the effect of people saying, you know what, I'm not going to go worship.
Rodriguez says that's especially true for Latino immigrants from countries with a history of religious persecution. The raids may never come, he says, but there's still the shock and fear of government interference in the free practice of religion. Joe Burns, Central Florida Public Media.
That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from News Director Latoya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.